Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Hey, everybody, Joe Trippi here, Democratic strategist and host of That Trippi Show. And with me is the other Joe, celebrated journalist Joe Klein. Joe's been covering political campaigns, well, just as long as I've been running some of them. And we tend to agree, disagree, and call it like we see them. So I'll let Joe introduce himself.
Well, yeah, actually, I'll tell a story. The first political campaign I ever covered was for the Zoning Board of Appeals in Peabody, Massachusetts in 1969. And the zoning board was in charge of canine control. They hired the dog catcher. And I remember the candidates saying, that we've reached a turning point, a crossroads in the history of canine control in Peabody, Massachusetts. And I think that every last campaign I've covered since, one candidate or another has said, we've reached a crossroads in the history of X. And I used to love reminding people that this is America, folks. We don't have crossroads. We're prosperous. We're doing well. We're happy. We're a great country. But I can't say that anymore. I do believe that we're at a crossroads right now.
Yeah, we are. We are. Well, look, Joe, I want to start out with my stat of the day or stat of the week. My stat of the week is the number 41, the 41 minutes of the second tap video that everybody I know, Republicans, Democrats, want to see. And on Capitol Hill, there are a lot of members on both sides who want to see it, and a lot of Democrats who clearly want that video to be released, and the American people deserve to see it. Donald Trump, of course, said he would release it, and then, like Trump would do, is now, when confronted by reporters asking when he will do that, he said he never said it, that the reporter said it, not him. And so it's 41 minutes that I hope we all see soon. Anyway, that's my stat. I think you have a quote of the week.
We'll wait for that.
Okay.
It's going to be part of our conversation, I think. But Joe, I mean, the thing I'm sensing right now is that the political zeitgeist is changing, that it's moving left. It moved right in 2024, largely on cultural issues and immigration. And now, because of affordability, I think it's a very promising time for Democrats, and I don't say that very often. I think that there
No,
are.
yeah, you're usually pretty critical, and I think you're going to be, so it's okay.
Well, no,
It's
I
nice
think,
of you to say it, though.
but no, I think there are three underlying inflationary issues that can only be resolved by government action and government activism. They're health insurance, utility rates, and housing. And I remained absolutely shocked by the fact that Donald Trump hasn't done anything about the utility question, about building and he could announce a Marshall Plan to rebuild the national electronic grid. And everybody would be in favor of it. Wouldn't that be like a 90-10 issue? But he hasn't done it. He can't. It may be because he just doesn't like windmills, which clutter up his golf courses.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. First of all, I think the problem there, even if he did that, the problem is that just like the CHIPS Act and some of the things that Biden did, that will take years to, the people will be benefiting from years from now, maybe. It didn't change for Biden. It didn't change the fact on the ground that everybody was paying more for things and didn't feel the economy was good or that he had done anything about it, even though we'll experience those later on. The same thing here. If he did announce a Marshall Plan, which I agree with you is sorely needed um, uh, uh, to strengthen the grid to replace, I mean, something that's just falling apart essentially and just not able to carry the load that it needs to carry. That needs to be done. But the impact of those shovels hitting the ground to do that or whatever, it would take years to do, and the country would benefit from it for sure. But I don't think Trump politically that rates would still be going up. I mean, I'm in, state after state that I've been visiting, they're at the highest levels they've ever been, and they're continue to increase. And there's all kinds of different reasons for that: the state of the grid, the data centers that are being built, and the energy they take. But I agree with you, he hasn't done anything. But in the end, I don't see any way in the next year that those prices are going anywhere but up. And no matter what he does about it, whether he suddenly declares his love of windmills,
But
you
yes,
won't be able to build enough windmills fast enough.
here's the thing, though. You're absolutely right. And on all three of these issues, housing isn't going to be resolved in the next year either. And the state of our healthcare system probably isn't either. But there are answers out there for all of them. And Democrats could pounce on them. The biggest thing that they could do in the area of energy policy and also housing is to come out in favor of a sunset bill in the House. You have stacks, mountains, Himalayan-sized mountains of regulations that are just encrusted into the system. And our old friend Al Fromm, who founded the Democratic Leadership Council, back when he was a staffer in the 1970s, tried to uh, push a sunset bill that would give a shelf life for every regulation of 10 years. And after 10 years, Congress would have to decide whether it wanted to keep that regulation or dispose of it. I'm sure there are plenty of regulations out there to regulate horses and carriages
I,
still.
I think that's the same thing, though, Joe. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Don't disagree with it. But the fact is, you put a sunset law that says anything on the books now sunsets in 5 years. Well, in 5 years, that's going to create all different change. Even if you sunset it everything in 6 months, great. Those regulations are gone. They're going to take no, but my point is, I think we're at a moment where people are in so much pain. It's like you said, the crossroads. Well, we're at a crossroads where I think a lot of people are in a lot of pain in terms of living paycheck to paycheck. Their energy rates are going up. The one place where government could have done something to attack inflation, for instance, Trump did the opposite. The tariffs that, whether temporary or transitory, have inflation rates gone up 0.7% this year over year this year. So it's gone up another, far further away from the Fed's target of 2%. It's closer to 3. And people's their everyday lives right now is, what are you going to do for me today? What can you do now? Not to get rid of the regulations and build the grid. I mean, I think this was a mistake that the Biden people made when they put so much energy into things like the
Bidenomics.
yeah. No, in the CHIPS Act and other things, which were, I think, again, will pay dividends at some point, for the country, but we're not paying dividends that moment in the place people were. And I think so the three things you mentioned: inflation, it's gone up because of tariffs and other things. Two, the healthcare. It's again, there is something they could do right now: extend extend the Obamacare extension of tax credits. Just because if you don't do that, those premiums are going to double and all that other stuff. I'm not getting into the merits of Obamacare, any of that. I'm talking about what they could do right now to at least look like, I'm talking about Trump actually, and the Republicans. They have the government, they have the House and the Senate. They could do that, but they're not going to. They're doing the exact opposite. So on the three things that you point to, you've got the overall inflation rate going up, you got healthcare prices going up, you got energy prices going up, and housing prices going up, and there's no and there's really nothing that in all three of those areas except for housing, all three of them, the literally things that Trump has done or the Republican budget has done have exacerbated those three things and made that made the cost and pain higher. Whether they could have done something about housing, they haven't. But I'm not sure. That one may be a very long term. I mean, like you said, getting rid of the regulations, freeing up, whether it's eminent domain on places that have fallen apart, and and rebuilding, or fueling things like affordable housing, but that they just haven't taken any action. So on three of them, they could do. There's three clear things I think they could do right now or could have done. They did the opposite. And on housing, they've done nothing. But that one I think is probably a long term. That's not one I think anybody could turn around in in the next, let's say, two years.
So we're in a situation where these basic issues cut towards Democrats.
Right.
The Democrats can raise affordability safely for the next year. But how honest can they be? You are the master at this. Can a Democrat make an ad face to camera saying, I'm not going to lower prices? No one is. I'm going to try and stabilize prices, and I'm going to try and reform some of the areas where you're paying more than you need to. But anybody who tells you that they're going to lower the prices of groceries isn't telling you the truth.
No, I think you could. I think you can make that case, but I think the stronger case is that the first thing we can do is to reverse the things that have been done to hurt you more than you should have been hurt. That we revoke the tariffs immediately. I mean, if you get a Democratic House, we will do that. We will extend healthcare credits, and that doesn't mean that we have to all agree that that's the way for the forever, but we'll extend them for 2 years and have a debate and discussion about how we can make healthcare better. But the way to take the weight off your backs now is a bipartisan agreement to extend them. I mean, I think and yes, by the way, yeah, the immigration policies, the mass deportations that have created a problem with and the tariffs, where our crops are not being bought by other people, or where they're not being harvested because people are too afraid to show up to harvest them. That's raising your food prices. So there are things we can do to reduce your food prices, to at least take the weight off of those price increases. The fact is, the Fed target, and everybody agrees, that to grow the economy, to create the jobs, you do want low inflation of 2% a year. So that your prices will never go down. They'll always go up that 2% a year. That's the way that creates the jobs, that gets this American economy, a miracle of our economy, going. That's where we want to get to. And there are ways to do that. And the problem is Donald Trump's policies are taking us in the wrong direction and making it tougher on you. And he says, by the way, all of this is a hoax. It's a Democratic con job. Well, I mean, that's how I would answer that.
The boy is really desperate these days. I think he's looking into he's been acting like a madman.
That's because he is one, but that's
yes. Well, I did a post on Sanity Clause called Mad Man, and that's double or triple entendre. I'm not sure which, but he knows he's trapped now, and he's acting crazier and crazier. The things he's saying are more and more extreme. Over the course of a single evening, he issues 150 tweets. Come on. I think that he knows that he's in a hole. And I think that he knows also that Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be the first of many Republicans who jump ship, or to avoid the train crash, to mix metaphors. But and as I said, um, I think that these are propitious times for not only for Democrats, but for the possibility of bipartisan votes in the House to achieve some of this stuff. Um, and one last caveat about inflation. Even if you continue the Obamacare subsidies, which I'm sure they will, because too many of those subsidies are landing in red districts. Um, Even if you do that, the price of health insurance is skyrocketing for everyone. I mean, Obamacare is just a small proportion of the healthcare market. There needs to be a significant reform, and I've been studying this stuff for decades, and there are only two answers. One is we decide as a society to raise taxes to pay a lot more for health insurance, or we ration it, and we use managed care. I mean, you see all those ads on the air now for Medicare Advantage.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
those are programs.
Do you call the number, Joe? Do you
What
call the number? Do you call the number every year to
do I call the
find out?
number?
Yeah,
No, because I
you
understand what they're selling and I don't want
know.
it. No, I mean, some managed, the fact is that managed care is a place we're going to have to go. We're going to have to start
Well,
paying doctors salaries rather than for every operation or process or tests that they offer. We're going to have to limit the number of doctors who are available to people, and we're probably going to, we're in the process of moving, and in our new neighborhood, we're going into something called concierge medicine, where you pay a small amount each month. Um, you could probably pay a lot of each month if you're really wealthy, and your portal doctor isn't a doctor. It's a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant. And if you have a real problem, you get immediately referred to the doctor. Uh, but I think that is part of the future. There are all these things that can work, but people are going to find them inconvenient. Um, so, the question is, how honest can we, how much of a crossroads are we actually at? How honest can reformers in both parties actually be about this? We'll see.
well, I mean, first of all, there's healthcare reform, which has to happen, obviously. Okay. And again, I think the point that I want to keep going back to is there something we can do today to take the weight off of people who are being impacted by the big ugly bill, beautiful bill, whatever you want to
Mm.
call it, the cut, all that stuff. And the one is extend the tax credits. The second thing is there were massive cuts to Medicaid. Rural hospitals are shutting down around the country. Um, for again, that's not just money. I mean, it costs money. I understand that, but it's people are having to go 100 miles if you have a heart attack is not like really making America healthy again. But we can get on to that. I just think that there are a couple of problems. First of all, the Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. they're not going to do any of those things. They're not going to, whether it's managed care or, I mean, maybe it's every man for themselves. Maybe it's survival of the fittest. I mean,
Well, I
that
think
might
that
be the
I
strategy that
think
they
that they
have.
do like managed care because it's for profit. I mean, I once had this conversation with Paul Ryan, and I said, "What if we lowered the age of Medicare eligibility for people who went into managed care, who went into Medicare Advantage?" And he was all over that. He loved that idea. Um, but you're right. None of this is easy.
Right now, with Trump as president, there's nobody to negotiate with. Okay, there's no one to try to actually do something about healthcare. Like, so I'm more in the not about the now the reality of the situation. I still think gets down to, can Democrats win the House in 2026? Um, can they put a dent in the Senate? Or do things go so wildly against Trump and MAGA that the at least months ago the unthinkable of Democrats even having any semblance of a shot at maybe taking majority in the Senate. If any of that happens, but the House has to, I think, to make enough people in this left in the Senate and the House Republicans, I mean, to actually think maybe we need, and you're starting to see some of them think maybe we need to extend the healthcare credits and things, but it's going to be at the edges like that. The real reform is going to have to happen, I think, with a candidate for president. Yeah, and I think it is. I think we'll get to this, but like I think, the truth teller, the Sister Soldier moment person, whatever there's a bunch of things that I think you need to be said that hopefully, yeah, someone like that emerges, a Bill Clinton, a Obama. I mean, we've had them emerge. I mean, on the Democratic side, and hopefully they'll expend that capital wisely if we do get the
Well,
presidency
it,
back.
it's it is striking to me. I've been talking to politicians as always the last few weeks, and you know, Democrats seem to believe that even though the the public is moving in their direction, that they're going to be able to get away with hiding some of the issues that really hurt them in the past. I know I go on about these, but they're cultural issues. And we've seen two examples in the last week of really incredible stories. One was the New York Times belatedly, very belatedly, did an analysis of Biden's immigration policy. And it found that the Biden administration, including his top aides, didn't want to do anything about the southern border because they were afraid of of a Latino backlash against them. Um, and uh, and to me, that was fanciful. Latinos tend to be pretty socially conservative people. They were worried about crime, and they were also pissed off about people who were jumping the queue, who were getting in illegally. Most of them have gotten in legally, but the Democrats completely misapprehended that, and and it was a kind of patronizing position. Uh, the other is the incredible scam in Minnesota, done mostly by Somalis, and that's where my quote of the week comes from. It comes from the Times, and it's this: Feeding Our Future, the nonprofit group that was the largest provider in the pandemic program, this was a lunch program during the pandemic, responded with a warning. In an email, the group, which was run by Somalis, told the state agency that failing to promptly approve new applicants from minority-owned businesses would result in a lawsuit featuring accusations of racism that would be, quote, sprawled across the news. So here you have these Somali scamsters who are threatening the state with racism if their scam is made public. And I really do believe that uh, that that in the immediate future, um, the Democrats are going to have to come to terms with their position on race and race-based preferences. I think the rest of the public sees through it. And, you talk about patronizing. Um, I'm waiting for the first white politician, liberal politician, to take on something stupid. And I hope it's not a Sister Soldier thing. Sister Soldier was peripheral. It was just a rap singer who had racist lyrics. But where's the Democrat who is going to say, "Hey, Head Start doesn't work. Hey, 60 years of sociology say that two parents are better than one. And by the way, the out of wedlock birth rate in the white community now is higher than it was in the black community 50 years ago." Um, I'm waiting for some honesty on a matter of real substance, not just because um, not just because it's the morally right thing to do, but it's also intellectually stupid. And I'll give you another example. Al Sharpton and I have been fighting each other for 40 years now. We lived in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, so we really knew how to duke it out. And but over the years, we've decided that we're still talking to each other. I can criticize him, he can criticize me, and that is what is known in the trade as equality. Um, but when Democrats say to me, "Oh, we just can't go there because it would upset the base," they are patronizing. Sorry, rant, but there it is.
Well, no, you're going to have politicians are going to be afraid of the different parts of the base. I mean, look, that's why the Republican Party is now owned by Trump and MAGA because they're afraid of the base. I mean, that's something that happens. I do think that there are things that Democrats have to on the cultural stuff need to make clear and clearer what the position is and tell people and be are very straight about where they are and clear about where they draw lines and all that thing. Because of how diverse our coalition is, that's a bigger problem in the Democratic Party a lot of the times. But the thing that I would caution people about all this is that the other the other answer of all Somalis are garbage and we don't want them here is is not no. And this is where, Joe, this is why I think people sometimes hear you don't want to go someplace because they don't want to reinforce that. They don't want to reinforce the president of the United States saying that, a pox on every Somali in the country, they're all garbage, every single one of them. They're the worst, and we need to get them all out of here. Yes, there may have been a scam in Minnesota. There may have been a threat that if you come after us, this is what we're going to say. And there may have been people in power who said, "Oh, crap, I just don't want to deal with that. I'm afraid of that." That's all true. But then to take it the way Trump has and to turn it into something far more dangerous in my part than the corruption,
Well,
which is
making it into a
the problem.
racial issue is the wrong thing in any
Right.
case. It's wrong for Donald Trump to do it,
Yeah.
and it's certainly wrong for those Somalis who were scamming those programs to threaten racism if they didn't get what they wanted. So, I mean, most of the issues that have racial aspects now needn't have them. We've had 60 years of amazing progress, which Democrats by and large do not recognize. The average income in the Black community is about 50% are middle class or higher. There are still too many poor Blacks, and there are still an awful lot of working poor whose lives could be improved. And one other thing, you want to talk about welfare fraud. This is $1 billion in Minnesota. It's a considerable sum. But Donald Trump is now going to give $12 billion of welfare to America's farmers simply because he ruined their market with his tariffs. And so you don't have to be defensive about this stuff, and you don't have to be particularly offensive. What you could do is, and what Democrats have to do, is stand for equality, which is quality of opportunity, and not equity, which is equity of results.
And equality under the law, which is a very difficult thing when the president's got immunity, can say anything he wants and call anybody he wants garbage. This is the problem that I think we're in terms of a lot of the sanity that you prescribe in a relatively non-sanity moment that the country is
In
in
an
right now in terms of
insane
its leader.
environment.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Hey, Joe, maybe before the year ends, it's coming to a close, we should do some of our favorites of the year. Uh,
Yeah.
Books, movies, uh, I would say
Yeah, we could.
music, but
Yep, absolutely. And so maybe candidates to look for in the new year and things like that. So
also
and by the way, people, you can send us your ideas, your suggestions for best of the year, worst of the year, best movies, all that kind of stuff. It'd be cool to get some of them. We can Joe and I can react to them.
Also, when I was at Time magazine, I had a year-end column every year where I gave awards for political courage. They were named after Teddy Roosevelt, and I think that we should solicit some of those from our viewers and listeners as well. And I'm going to try and come up in the next couple of weeks with a list of Teddies for 2025.
That's great. I look forward to it, and I'll try to come up with some too. Anything you want to close out with, Joe, before we tell everybody we'll be back next week?
We'll be back next week.
Okay, everybody. Thanks, Joe.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.